All right, so we're going into round four. Or sorry, not round four, round five, the final round. I'm on 3.5 out of 4, and I'm in the running for the money. I can't possibly get first overall because I didn't get paired with the top board, and so the top board was still on 4 out of 4, and I'm on 3.5 out of 4, and he's playing against someone who's also on 3.5 out of 4. So if I win, I have 4.5. If he loses, his opponent has 4.5, so I can share first. And if they draw, then and I win, we can do 4.5 also. So the best I can do is share it first at this point. But frankly, like my heart's not really in the game. I'm finally getting paired up, which is frustrating because like I'm tired, and frankly, I kind of wanted to go home. I did like an 8-mile run the morning before, and then I won both my games that night. I stayed up kind of late because I was feeling good and thought I could sleep in. Then I had a really long game that morning, and and this game is starting like at 3:30 in the afternoon, which is already the time of day where I'm feeling kind of like, oh. So this was a pretty uninspired game by me, if I'm perfectly honest. But let's dive in and take a look. All right, so I had the white pieces. Playing against someone who's rated roughly 200 points higher than I am. And we jump into the game, and of course, I'm playing d4. And he pauses for a long time. He takes like 2-3 minutes here and finally comes back with f5. And like, I'm immediately a little bit annoyed because this is just not a line that I have a lot of experience in. And I don't really feel comfortable with the ideas. And I'm already sort of like a little bit checking out because I'm just annoyed. So anyway, c4 and knight f6. And here I have a decision to make. I can follow the ChessGoals repertoire, which is kind of what I committed to, but I'm more familiar with playing some lines like this bishop f5, and you go knight to f3, and then here, and eventually here. We delay this, and this is a pretty solid setup against the Dutch, especially if they go into a stonewall. But the issue is he maybe won't go into stonewall. Maybe he'll play e6, preparing e5, and then maybe the bishop's not so great on f4 because it can get hit with tempi. But ultimately, I decided, you know what? We're here. This is a training game. It doesn't really matter. I've committed to the ChessGoals repertoire. I don't care if I've never yet had this in a classical game. Let's do it. So I played g3. And then he hits me with e6 and bishop g2, and now bishop to b4. And here, I'm already sort of on my own. Our course repertoire goes a bit further, but I could not for the life of me remember whether we block with the knight or whether we block with the bishop. Turns out they're both fine. I chose to block with the bishop. The course repertoire is actually to block with the knight. I didn't really like this blocking with the knight because it feels like it's penned, and then maybe this will come in and there's some pressure there, and I thought that was a little bit annoying. But turns out that's not really the case. They come here. They don't really want to play this just yet. I mean, okay, well, let's just take a look at that. So something like this that I'm like afraid of. Well, I can just ignore it. Go knight h3. And I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to take. Okay, fine. I'll take. And you're going to take again. I'll take. And I'm like way up on development. I've got this nice bishop already in the game. I'm prepared to play e4 at some point. I really don't know why I should be terribly upset about this position. It's a little bit simplified, which I tend to not like. I need to really dig in and figure out why I don't really like simplified positions. I guess I feel like because there's no play on them or something. But anyway, I chose to play bishop to d2, thinking that I should be happy to trade these bishops because this is his good bishop. This is my bad bishop, and so let's get him off. He plays a5, and I actually kind of liked a5. I thought it was a little bit obnoxious because if I take, he takes back with the pawn. His rook is all of a sudden active, and it's difficult for me to develop my knight out in either of the natural squares. So I just play, and now he captures. And again, like I have a decision. I can take with the queen, reserving this square for the knight. But I didn't like taking with the queen because again, I thought knight e4. But really, the knight would like to be on c3. It's just a better square for the knight. And if I take and he grabs this way, I can just slide aside. And this is kind of the natural square for the queen anyway. It's coming with tempo now. I'm threatening to win a pawn out of the gate. And I can play f3, kick the knight. I can come here. I can bring this knight out, play e4. This is probably a more natural way to play, but I chose to take with a knight because I thought I was controlling this e4 square, and I'm aware of this idea of playing f3, e4. He plays d5, which actually was really happy about because he is just jumping into a stone wall where he's already traded the dark square bishops, which is not something that black wants to do. This stone wall setup really doesn't make much sense when the dark square bishops have been traded. So I played knight h3, which is our idea. I want to prevent this from happening. Maybe I want the knight to come to f4. If I can get this knight to here and this knight to here, I should be pretty happy. And I had some opportunities to achieve that, but I didn't manage to pull it off. Queen c6, c6, queen to c2. And if he takes, I can always take back with the queen, defend this pawn. But I just castle, he castles, and now b6. And I was really happy to b6. Like, I'm significantly better now, but I'm still, like, not feeling that great. My heart's not really in the game. But, you know, I was pretty optimistic here because I thought I must be better. He's got all of these pawns on light squares. This pawn is particularly weak. This pawn might be weak later. And I knew that I had a pretty good situation. I wanted to be able to, at some point, capture here and try to get a queen to c7. This would be particularly nice if this knight were on c6 because I could capture, play knight to b5, and I'm already getting kind of some threats in here. Which the point of queen c2, if we go back a moment, was to try to prevent this move because I would capture and he would be forced to take back with this pawn, and I would have all the c-file action I could hope for. So b6, rook ac1, and now rook a7, which the computer wasn't a big fan of, but I thought this was quite an interesting move. The point is he wants to do this, and he wants to do this, and he wants to have this rook involved in the game. This is kind of a nice idea. Computer's not a huge fan, but it's a nice idea. I played knight f3, thinking I just needed to defend this pawn. I also think at some point he should strongly consider this, put some pressure here. But h6 comes, and here's my opportunity to try to get knight f4. I didn't do it because I thought I was just going to come with tempi, but knight f4, g5, and I can actually just go knight g6. This rook needs to move. So for example, say he comes here with the idea of trying to come across. Well, now I can do this c takes, and again, he's forced to take back with this pawn because otherwise the bishop hangs. So he takes back, and I can plant a knight here, and these knights are super strong. I have a lot of pressure on c6, and I'm perhaps threatening to maybe capture here at some opportune moment because of some pins on this file. This would have been a fantastic way to play. Instead, after h6, I played knight e5 immediately, and now g5, and I lose this ability to bring the knight into f4. I kind of wanted to keep this knight here because I thought that after a push, this knight would set really well here. So I played rook fd1. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I wasn't ready for this. I did think this bishop was going to come out at some point, and I wanted to be able to play e3, and I didn't want to allow this bishop to exchange for, say, a knight or something. But anyway, rook g7, and now I played f3. And I'm still just hinting at this e4 maneuver, but also preventing a knight from coming to either one of these squares. Knight fd7, and again, I can allow this trade. It's fine to have a pawn setting here. He doesn't have a bishop to attack it with. It's going to be pretty difficult to try to grab it. I can probably just grab here and say if you take back the way you want here, well, you just lost a pawn, so you can't do that. So you have to take back this way. But now I can hit with e4, and things are suddenly opening up very quickly. So, for example, takes, maybe I can take. If you take again, this would be fantastic. Maybe I go knight to f2, take here, and I'm threatening to try to drop a knight into one of these squares. This would be a pretty nice way to go. Instead of that, I played knight to d3, just under the idea that these are awkward, especially this knight, and I didn't want to let him easily trade off pieces. But now the bishop does come out to a6, and I played b3. Not great. Again, I didn't want to take here because he allows this. But honestly, after takes, say he throws this in between, I take back with the queen, and say he takes back with the e-pawn. I actually can play just e4, because now that his light squared bishop is off the board, I can definitely start an assault on the light squares, and this bishop is going to be completely unopposed, and I would have a fantastic position. But instead, I chose to play b3, and the queen comes out. And here I played queen to b2 because I don't want to, let this pawn get hit. Probably b4 at some point here, which is definitely the way to go. But now h5 comes, and I decided to move this knight out of the way. I should probably leave the knight here. I really wanted to have the option to put the knight on f4 after g4 comes. But I didn't really know what to do. I could just play e3, and now if g4 comes, I can take it and say he takes this way. But now I can hop this knight into here, and maybe at some point I'll get the knight here and have everything I want. And this file there's no issue here. This bishop is a fantastic defender. It would be a really healthy position for me, and I really have no problems whatsoever. And I still have the option of taking here and trying to open this diagonal for my own bishop. Then I chose to move the knight here, and he pushes, which I think is a mistake. And I had intended to play knight to f4, but I got a little bit afraid. I thought this was particularly scary because after takes and say push, I didn't like this at all. Apparently, this is just totally fine. I just go rook e1, allow him to capture, take, allow him to capture. But now, insane move that I would never have considered. It seems like maybe we should take here, and this might be okay. This might be okay. But the recommended move is knight to h1. What a weird idea. And he doesn't even need to take. For example, the computer thinks the best move is here, and this is just too terrifying. I didn't like this at all. I was not feeling good here. I didn't actually even see this. I thought instead that perhaps I would just grab here. But, after queen to h7, this rook kind of a lift. This is terrifying, and I don't feel like I need to allow this. So I chose to play f4, just shutting things down. Although this does give away all my advantage. And when I played f4, in my head, I was kind of admitting that I was no longer going to try to play for a win, just because I thought this locked things down. I gave up on my e4 push. It doesn't feel like I'm getting anything on the c file. I just kind of let go of this game. And somewhere in here, in a couple of moves, I went ahead and captured here because I thought I got to do this at some point. I thought this was a mistake for me to capture, allowing him to come down this file, but apparently that's just not the case at all. I should just follow up with b4, captures. This c5 is nearly impossible to achieve. There's not going to be any real meaningful pressure. Say you try to come this way, you're not actually even threatening to take this. So for example, let's just say I move the queen out of the way and you jump in. Well, thanks for the free queen. So it's not even really a threat. I didn't actually see that it wasn't a threat. I sort of panicked, immediately played knight e5, captures, and now here. And the move that black really needs to get in is c5, so that they can open this bishop up, and I should definitely try to stop that from happening. The best way to do that, b4. You can capture, and now c5 is difficult to achieve. So for example, you play it immediately. I actually can just play queen to b1. I'm attacking this pawn. So you try to defend it, but now I can capture, you capture, I win a pawn. So you can't defend c5 that way. Maybe you try to defend it with the rook, but now takes, and I have queen to b6 coming in. I'm attacking this pawn, maybe going to come across, hit the bishop. I'm also hitting this rook, which is a little bit awkward. So if your bishop tries to say, oh, let's just give a random move. I might be able to capture here. When you take back, I can capture this rook, perhaps like this. But I also still have e4 ideas. The point being that if you capture this way, that's a free rook for me. If you capture this way, I can still just grab, and I'm using tactics. This knight's going to come across. Maybe I'll get my pieces in. Let's not forget that black's king really doesn't have any pawn defense. But this would have been a better way to go. Instead, I played e3 because I was thinking that I wanted to stop this e4 maneuver. Instead, the knight comes in and kind of defending against here. I played knight to d3, and around here I think I offered a draw, and he scowled at me and didn't accept the draw. I mean, white's actually a fair amount better here. I didn't realize how much better I was, but white's better, and yeah, he definitely didn't want to draw. But I understand that. I'm lower rated. He is on 3 out of 4, so he's had a loss before, And if he wants any chance at any prize money, he really needs to play for the win. So a loss and a draw were the same thing for him. He did play c5, and I just overlooked this chance to, again, b4 is a really critical move here. Takes, say takes. If you want to grab here, well, now takes, and I can play queen to d4, rook b1. I'm going to collect this pawn. This pawn's weak, this pawn's weak, this pawn's weak, this pawn's weak. I should be able to win something. Also, keep note, I have this passed pawn, which at some point could potentially be important, foreshadowing. But anyway, I played rook d2. I just wanted to double up and put as much pressure as I could on this d5 pawn. This b4 was not even on my radar at all. Again, I just wanted to go home. He comes here. Again, I had opportunity to play b4, didn't go for it. He brought across to defend, and my point is just, I'm just going to put my rook here, and I will have like everything. Maybe I can move the rooks up, triple up, and I can put absolutely everything on this pawn, meaning that it will never advance, and perhaps I might win it someday. Knight c7, just trying to defend. Again, b4. Knight e2, comes across. I touch this pawn just for funsies. He comes back across. I bring the king up. Just, I don't know, let's bring the king, defend this pawn. Maybe that'll be important. Maybe at some point I thought he might play here and capture, and I wanted to be able to have a rook so that I'm the one that gets to use the file. Knight b5. I come across, defend the pawn. He brings his king, and now knight to c3. And I thought I had everything I want here. He can exchange. I didn't think this was a problem. I have everything on this pawn. Now knight c3, and now this. And I was a little bit concerned here. I took, and he captures, and then he has this check, and now I'm like really worried. But he captures here, and I had a nice way to make sure that everything was totally safe, and that actually I'm the one that has a little bit of pull here. Play king to c4. And I'm going to trade the queens off, and this pawn is just going to be weak, and I have this protected passed pawn. Computer says even Stevens, totally equal. He moves back, I went and captured, and I bring this to the file. Maybe I'm going to come here, try to start collecting some of these pawns. So it comes across, defends, and then I really like this move. I thought this was quite nice. I didn't want to capture and let him take with a pawn, but I also wanted to remain on the c file. So he took, and I took, and now I'm starting to feel pretty confident. Bring king to e2. I just want to come here. I want to come here, put the king here, and I'm defending my pawn. My rook is way more active than his, and maybe at some point I'll bring the rook in front, and I can just win the pawn. And if this pawn falls and we trade rooks, this should be good chances to be a winning pawn ending. King d8. I continue on with my plan, and I come here, and after a4, this is when I thought I'm winning. This has to be a winning position. And I was also frustrated that it was winning because I didn't want to calculate a win. I just wanted to go home. I just wanted the game to be over with. I really couldn't find the fighting spirit here, which is really sad. I spent like 25 minutes in this position trying to calculate everything out, and I actually saw all the pertinent lines. And hilariously, I chose the most difficult way all the way through. The easiest way is probably just to take. And then if they come here, I play e6. And say you try to play king d6. Well, now I can just play, say, rook here. And if the king comes out to e7, maybe it was better to, instead of defending the pawn, maybe I can actually just grab and defend it this way. But the point is that he's never going to have time to capture this. And I'll be able to capture this pawn. The line I thought was perhaps the most promising in my original idea was to push the pawn. And I thought rook e7, and I was going to come here. And I thought he would play like this. And in my head, I was just going to take here. And I thought he had to capture here. And then we would get this kind of a position. And I wasn't sure if this was a win. Oh, sorry, I mistook a line. So before the king comes across, captures, and now here. And then I thought I would take this here, and then I thought I had to play here, and then this is a dead draw. But what I missed is that I don't take the rook. I can just grab this pawn, and you can't possibly defend this pawn because I'll just come here and you can't take it, and this is clearly winning, clearly. So I didn't go for this. Instead, I pushed, went rook e7, and I thought, haha, I can take this pawn immediately. And then I can grab this pawn. Mistake. I still have options to play rook e5, keeping this rook out of the position. And if you try to come across, well, now I can play king takes d4 with Tempe, and you can grab here, and you can try to play this, but now I just have rook e3, and your rook is really kind of passive here, and I can come across and grab this with my king. So, for example, say you play like this, just king e4, say you play like this, well, you've stopped me from coming in, but I just push. We get here, I'm going to win the pawn, and this should be pretty straightforward and easy. Instead, I chose king d4. I had it in my head, I was like, there's these rooking games that are like wild, and it's a race, and you got to allow some counterplay, otherwise you can't win. And this is kind of what I was telling myself, that like it's okay to allow this counterplay, because I thought I should be faster. I am faster. It's just not easy at all. He advanced. Again, I had this idea of trying to go to rook e4 and stopping his rook from coming in. But I allowed this rook e2. I capture. He takes here. I come across. And he drops back. And his point is simple. He goes h2. He gives a check. He makes a queen. But I have rook h6, which I was really happy to see this idea. I forced the king backwards. And now I'm just going to come back. There's only one winning move in this position, but it's totally winning. It's king to e4. And the point is that I'm threatening to come this way and help with the pawn, and I'm also threatening to come this way and support this pawn. Some other ideas don't work. So, for example, king to d5, h2, I give this check. He comes across. King to c6, trying to hide behind this pawn so there's no check. But now the stunning b5. This is a fantastic looking move. And I really need to be a bit careful. Black maybe is going to make another pass pawn. If I capture, they get this check, and I can't allow that. So this is a really, really, really nice drawing idea. And if instead I try to go king to e5, thinking I'm just going to come here, well, now h2 happens, and say I try to just come in front of the pawn. Well, now rook g1, and captures, and this rook is going to grab this pawn. We have this pawn versus this pawn, and again, should be a draw. So I can't come this way. Queen e3 doesn't work because of a4, which is a wild move. Say I play f5, goes h2, and now I try to play king h3, but now rook f1 comes. And the king comes here, stopping this pawn, but now I've lost this pawn. And so it's such a complicated position. King e4 works because black has two threats. They're threatening to play h4, wasting a tempi, and they're threatening to play h2. Against h2, I can go king to f3, and I'm in time to stop the pawn. You give a check, I come here, I'm going to pick up the pawn, and everything is hunky-dory. If instead you try to play h4, instead of h2, then I can now come to f5. And the point is, when you play here, I have g4. And now when you play rook g1, I grab this pawn, and you're not winning my g pawn. Complicated stuff. So instead of the king e4, which is a really hard move to make, I play king to e3, plays h2, and king f3. Transposing into that previous line is the only way to go. I chose here, which seemed natural enough, but there's a reason why this is not great. We come here, I have to take the pawn. He goes rook a2, and now my king has to go to the back rank. And this is the difference, is that my king gets stuck on the back rank now. He takes, I play rook d2 because I want to bring my king up and not have my rook shut out. And I need to do this with tempo so I can defend the g3 pawn. He comes here, play king f2, just trying to get my king up the board. And I thought should still have some winning chances, but all of a sudden his king and rook are very, very active. My king is much, much less active. And I need to have my king help support these pawns. This pawn seems dangerous. This pawn seems weak. And I'm kind of terrified. a4, absolutely the best move. I played g4, thinking I just need to do something. He brings the king across, and I played f5 check. And I was kind of hoping that he would come here, because I wanted to go here, give a check, and then be able to get behind the pawn. Again, I'm sort of back to thinking I have perhaps bungled this, and I wanted to give a chance for I just wanted to draw. I played rook d5, king f4, huge mistake. I don't know why I didn't really calculate this, but I thought I would just push, which is the winning idea. But then I thought check, and then I thought I've got to move. So say here, And then he just takes the pawn, and I thought he'll just take this pawn, but I missed a really cute idea here. Point is check, and the king has to stay in touch with this rook, and so he's got to come here. But now this pen defending, and you're forced to exchange. Otherwise, you're just going to lose the rook. So takes, and this pawn will promote, and I am inside the box of this pawn, totally winning. But instead of that, I gave a check. He came here. I gave a check. The only drawing move is here or here. And he played not here, but instead came back. I gave a check. He came here, and he offered a draw, and I graciously accepted. And yeah, it felt good. I ended up 4.5 out of 5, or not 4.5, 4 out of 5. First board did win, so I ended up getting third place. It's $400. I gained 35 rating points or so. I had no losses, which is always nice. And one of the coolest parts, I weighed in Friday before the tournament because I weigh in like every day. And then I came home Monday morning and I weighed in again, and I lost 6 pounds over this tournament. I guess just the sweat and anxiety of playing. I played chess for like about 20 hours over the 3 days time period. I was exhausted and ready to go home. In fact, when like they were like, "Hey, we're gonna come up, we'll write you your check," and I was like, "Can you guys just mail it to me? I just want to leave. I don't want to wait for a check." But they don't mail checks. So I took my $400 and I went home and kind of celebrated. But like, frankly, if I'm totally honest, I'm not terribly pleased with any of my games. There was the Panoff game in round 4 that was pretty clean and smooth, but in most of the games, despite a fantastic result, third place in a pretty big field of players playing in a higher section that I technically should be playing in, gaining a bunch of rating points, I don't feel that great about my tournament. But we live to fight another day. I am currently signed up to play in the Chicago Open at the end of May, so I'll be heading up there to play that again. Matt's going to be there. A few other ChessGoals members are going to be there. So if anyone else is playing in Chicago, let me know. But thanks a lot, guys, and I hope that you enjoyed learning about my tournaments, and talk to you later. Bye-bye.